Hey guys!
Oh, hey, hold on a minute. It's the podcast and Paul's starting. Hey guys, welcome to the Cycle Sunday Podcast. And welcome to the first live podcast, or at least one where we are together in the same room.
We're here.
I know, I'm not
here.
virtual. I'm not in Chichester. I am in Edinburgh.
I know. Do you know what I was going to say? I really like what you've done with the place.
I know.
So people wouldn't know where we were.
I know.
Because where are we?
We are in your new shop. Oh, yes!
And what do you think?
Mate, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So one of the things, a few of the comments we got was, why did you do it when you did, and why couldn't you wait, especially because of all the restrictions and stuff? Well, the reason we timed the whole series of Cycle Sunday was because you were opening up a new shop, which you did a week ago?
We did a week ago.
Yeah. And I've come up today to film the next batch of episodes of Cycle Sunday and to get to see the bike being put together. But that will all be revealed in episode 6 next week.
Yes.
But it's incredible.
Thank you.
It's really, really cool, and I cannot wait for people to be able to see it and have a look round.
Yes, yes.
Now, clearly, if you're watching the podcast on the Cycle Sunday podcast channel on YouTube, you can kind of see me and Paul, and you can see a little hint of the shop behind. And if you're listening on Spotify or one of the other podcast channels, you're just going to have to wait till next week.
Or you can watch it again on YouTube.
Yeah, or you can go to your website and have a look. Have you got any pictures on your website yet?
I don't know.
Oh,
but we will have by the time.
The joys of doing this out of sequence.
Yes.
Anyway, back to the story.
Yes.
So, you hopefully have just watched episode 5 of Cycle Sunday.
Which was really interesting.
It was, yes, but I'm very tired now.
I know. Did I spoke too soon?
I'm very deflated.
Yes.
So yes, we've done all the possible puns. So we were talking wheels and tyres for my dream road bike, and hopefully you've been listening to every podcast and watching all of the Cycle Sunday episodes up until this point, choosing the right frame size, the frame, the fitting, the group set, and now we've decided about wheels.
Yes.
And I didn't realise until we started filming that episode just how complex a subject wheels could be.
Yep.
Because you think a wheel's a wheel, but actually, I guess there's a few things we want to talk about in this podcast. First one for me is, I think a wheel set is a really great upgrade to any bike.
Yep.
In terms of if you like, benefit for the cost. Mm-hmm. So if you spend some decent money on a decent set of wheels, even if your frame or your group set isn't the best, you're going to get a huge benefit from it, right?
Yes. Yeah, in general. And the other thing that's happening now in the road world and the mountain bike world with new wheel sets is you can, where they are, this is going to get a little bit nerdy and technical for the
podcast
radio.
Is for nerdy and technical.
Yeah. But where the cassette and the disc rotor sit in space. Yeah. As long as you keep, so for example, Bontrager, who is Trek's parts accessory and clothing wing, create all of their wheels at all their different levels to ensure that the disc rotor and the rear cassette sit in exactly the same place in space.
Right.
So that now means that you could have one bike with a few wheel sets.
Nice.
So for example, if you're building yourself a gravel bike, you could have a gravel bike with a set of nice lightweight alloy wheels. With a rear cassette, with a set of discs fitted to it, and maybe a wet weather road tyre. So on a foul day sportif, rather than taking your Uber bike out, you can take your gravel bike, but more efficiently on a set of road wheels.
Right, okay, good plan.
And then your gravel bike could also have a set of wheels that has got gravel tyres already set up. So it's just a quick wheel change to go and use that one bike for multiple uses. And I'm only talking as a voice of experience here, because that's precisely what Rosie, my wife, and I do with our gravel bikes. We've got 3 sets of wheels for that one bike.
That makes sense. I mean, and I think I've fallen into that trap because I've got when I bought my aluminium bike, I upgraded the wheels.
Yes.
And still got the old wheels that came with that bike. And when I bought my Venge, I thought, naively, I can use the rear wheel that was on the aluminium bike as my turbo wheel.
No.
But it wouldn't fit the bike.
No.
I was gutted.
No.
So I need to either buy a wheel that's the right spec for my Venge and have two wheels, or like I do is I just change the tyre when it's turbo season and stick it on my a turbo tyre on it and leave it inside.
Yeah. So it works really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea, because the biggest problem I've got at the moment is if the sun's out and it's nice and dry, and I think I'd have to go for a ride on my Venge. At the moment I've got a turbo tyre on there and it's like, and it's a real pain. You just swap the wheels.
Yes.
So and I guess the big thing with the wheels is you've got this massive spectrum of expense. You can spend a lot of money on a wheel set.
Oh yeah, and we sort of really recommend them.
Yeah. and for the dream bike, we kind of have. Yeah,
we've gone pretty much all out.
Because one of the things we didn't say on the video was we've kind of put in the same wheels as you've got on your Imonda.
Yes.
So they're Campagnolo wheels, but they're the disc variant.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit more about the actual wheels that are going on the bike.
Yep, so it's a new range of wheels. I say new, probably within the last 12, 18 months. Mm-hmm. New range of wheels to Campag or Campi, depending on where you are in the world, or Campagnolo if you're in Italian.
Campagnolo!
Indeed, yes. And it's called their WTO range, which is wind tunnel optimized. So it's had a little bit of wind tunnel testing. So a lot of these manufacturers now are really working on profiles. Because the thing you've got to bear in mind about a wheel is that the tyre at the front of the bike and the tyre at the front of the rear wheel is the leading edge aerodynamically. Yeah. But then the rim at the back end of the front wheel and the back end of the rear wheel is also the leading edge.
Right. Okay.
Because your aerodynamic, it's not one wing in one place. Yeah. Your tyre is the leading edge of one wing, and then the rim is the leading edge of the back edge of that wheel.
Good. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the rim profiles, now they look a lot blunter than they used to be. So if you look at your old Mavic Cosmics, the foil that's on there is sharp. Yeah. Which is great when the tyre is the leading edge, so that the wind flow runs across the tyre
like a teardrop,
a teardrop, and then relieves itself from the trailing edge, which is the wheel aerofoil, but then gets sliced when the foil then is the leading edge as it's now going over the back end of the tyre. Yeah. So now if you look at a modern aero wheel, you'll actually find that it is as efficient with the tyre being the leading edge as the rim being the leading edge. And that is really complex to get your head around whilst listening to this in your car. Yeah. But hopefully that makes sense. And in addition to that, they've got to work at multiple yaw angles. So a wheel heading straight into a headwind has to perform incredibly well, so it has to be very slippery as it's going into a headwind. But then as the wind starts yawing around the side of the bike into what would effectively be a crosswind, it's then also got to be efficient so it's not feeling twitchy and unstable. But then of course when you've got a screaming tailwind, it also wants an advantage to be pushed along as well.
Right, okay.
So if you look at a lot of Trek aerodynamics on their bikes, they use a system which is called cam-tail virtual foil, where all of the trailing edges of the frames are actually cut short. And that was devised, I think, if I get my history right, back in the 50s by a Swedish guy called Cam, K-A-M-M, who developed the cam-tail virtual foil. And cars that utilise the cam-tail virtual foil, Toyota Prius, Nissan GTR, So if you imagine the shape of those vehicles now, you've got a bullet-shaped nose, but then the trailing edge is flat. And what that allows is that those sharp trailing edges, those flat edges, allow the wind to create its own tail, its own virtual foil. But it keeps the side profile as short as possible. And then in a tailwind, it's a flat back to push against.
Mate, seriously?
Yeah.
I was saying seriously because I can tell we're in Scotland. It's raining cats and dogs out there. If you can hear the noise in the background, it's your bad weather. But I mean that. So some people will be listening and thinking, hold on, you're talking about aerodynamics on a bike, either a wheel or a frame, when you're doing what, 20, 25 miles an hour, 30, 40, 50 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
But it's slow speed aerodynamics.
It's slow speed aerodynamics. And it's watt savings.
Yeah.
So if you can travel at 20 to 30 kilometres an hour, whilst producing less physical watts to do that speed, then you're saving energy, saving fuel, or in the event of a human being, your glycogen stores. So you can travel at that speed for longer because you're using less energy.
Wow. So these wheels, so the profile, they're 50 mil, 45 mil,
45
deep rim.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I think first of all they look cool. You know me and something looking cool.
Yeah.
So there's a huge aero benefit there. What about the spokes? I'm presuming that if they've done all the rim stuff in the aero tunnel, they've done the spokes as well.
They have, yeah. It's completely bespoke.
Oh dear. Get to the hub of it, mate.
I will.
Yeah. How many puns can we get in this podcast?
I don't know, yeah. Bearing in mind. So when it comes to the hubs, I think we'll save this for maybe a little bit of a deeper dive on one of the videos. So we'll probably be creating a few more videos, I would imagine.
Well, that's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. What Campag have done is they engineer their hubs to distribute the correct amount of torque between left and right, because on your front wheel, on a disc wheel for example, your disc rotor when under braking is going to cause more drag on one side of the wheel than the other side of the wheel, so therefore they beef up the hub so that you get less torque steer almost. But then at the back end, where you're putting power through the cassette, and therefore you could get a torque steer in the rear wheel, they engineer that into the hub system as well. So the technology that goes into everything from the bearing, axle, hub interface, hub shell, lacing pattern of the spokes, the spoke nipple, and the actual rim itself is just unbelievable.
That's why they're like £1,000 each, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I guess as you're going up that price range for a wheel, not only is that wheel made of more exotic materials, lighter weight, metals and alloys, carbon fibre, but the R&D and the development that's gone into it is
that's what you're paying for in top flight stuff. Is actually what you are paying for is R&D. Because somebody has had to, and as Chris Harris would say, somebody has had to pay people with big foreheads in white coats to create these profiles, these shapes. I mean, the last time when I was speaking to Trek, Bontrager was creating their new aerodynamic shape, and it was something like 10,000 profiles was run through a supercomputer through CFD, which is all your computational fluid dynamics, in order to get down to, say, the final 5 profiles that they would then prototype and turn into a testing platform. The R&D that goes into these things is just spectacular. And then what you'll find is that you'll then get trickle-down technology. So those brand new profiles that's developed for the Pro Peloton, for all these top flight products, once that R&D has been used, the tooling to be able to create the molds, to create these things, have all been bought and paid for. Then what happens is that tooling and that process goes into your mid-range wheel set.
Yeah.
And so forth as you start moving through the ranges.
I guess much like in motorsport, you've got Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport, the aerodynamics that are in Formula One feed into, first of all, I guess, extreme projects like Valkyrie, Aston Martin Valkyrie.
Yes.
And then those aerodynamics feed down into the road cars that we buy. And I guess the analogy for us with the bike we're building is it's kind of almost at the Valkyrie scale rather than the road car scale in terms of its closeness to what the Pro Peloton are. Well, it is what the Pro Peloton is.
No.
We bought a Formula One car.
You bought a Formula One car.
Yeah.
It is what the Pro Peloton.
I just wish I had the Formula One engine.
Yeah, that's disappointing. But you're in great company.
Yeah.
Because 85 to 90% of the people who are buying bikes like yours are getting probably 30 to 40% of the performance that bike could offer. Yeah. But there's no problem with that.
No.
There's no issue with that at all because they're beautiful, beautiful things. Yeah. And if you can spend X thousands of pounds on a bike because you've got X thousands of pounds of disposable income, then what's wrong with that? They're just lovely things to ride, and you'll always appreciate the difference.
Yeah, and for me, actually, I'm an engineering nut, and I think we've talked about the process that we've gone through with the video so far, and the things I've learned about bikes that I didn't know.
Sure.
You appreciate the engineering even more, and I bought a wall mount for the bike already. So
I know you were so excited. You sent me a picture.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's going to go in my office. I haven't actually told Mrs. Petrolped yet that
you have now.
Yes, true. But they're beautiful things. So they are. You can hang them on a wall and look at them. And I have to say, one of the things we'll do, I think, in the next episode of Cycle Sunday is have a walk around the bike shop here, because some of the bikes you've got in here are just sensational things.
Really nice.
Really, really lovely. If we just talk a bit more about aerodynamics, wheel-wise, and maybe this links into a video that we can do when we've got the bike actually assembled, is if any of you have seen the unboxing video that I put on Cycle Sunday Extra a couple of weeks ago, and when you got the forks out of the box, the forks on the Ultra XF4 have got a bow in them, haven't they? They're kind of bowed outwards.
Yes.
And you briefly made...
And that wasn't me wrapping it just so it was pretty. We're talking about...
No, exactly. Not a tied bow. So they've got this bow in them. And you were saying that is, again, it's this aerodynamics between... And it's now... So we've just talked about the aerodynamics of the wheel going through the air, but the rotation of that wheel and the airflow creates an aerodynamic environment, turbulence and so on. And then you've got the design of the front fork and fork blade to try and make that as efficient as possible. Yes. And that just blows my mind.
Yeah. It is.
Because you look at a bike and go, that fork's just there to hold the wheel on.
Yeah, it does that as well.
Yeah, it's quite good at that.
Yes, and it's just fantastic. And it's one of those things when it comes to wheels, because of course you've got to think about the front end of your bike. It is a gyroscope, right? Yeah. So you've got a rotational mass that's going across one axis that's affecting the weight I always get confused between centrifugal and centripetal. So any sort of scientists out there.
Centrifugal force. Centrifugal force is the resultant reaction to centripetal acceleration.
Flip.
Yes. So centripetal acceleration is inwards.
Yes.
And centrifugal force is the effective response to it going outwards, I think. Now, if anybody is a scientist, I just remember that from A-level physics, and that was like a long, long time ago.
Right. Well, let's take your A-level physics and put it into practice.
Okay.
Right. So if you think about your wheel being a rotational mass, the faster that wheel is rotating, the heavier that wheel is,
yeah,
the more energy you have to put into the handlebars
yeah,
to steer the bike. Because always remember that as you are riding faster and faster and faster, the bike is actually getting more and more stable because
you've got two whopping gyroscopes underneath you.
Two whopping gyroscopes underneath you. So the moment of inertia, because that's the thing that really freaks people out, is when you are wanting to turn right on a bike, you push the right handlebar or the right side of the handlebar away and counter steer to tip the bike off its vertical axis and engage the corner.
Yeah.
And that is a moment of inertia when you're pushing the handlebars. So the agility of the bike with a lighter wheel set really makes a difference. So if you're riding a bike with a heavy tyre and a heavy wheel on a really fast, flowy, beautiful section of road, it can feel quite slow and cumbersome. You now take a lightweight wheel set on that same road, and suddenly the way that the change of direction and the way that it will actually physically engage the corner and hold the line and change direction to the opposite direction is so intuitive.
Yeah, I'm probably going to find a big difference because we're going to get onto tyres in a minute, but in the video I kind of admitted that I'm running armoured tyres on my bike, which probably weigh about the same as the bike.
Yeah, and the compound of that rubber as well will be like putting the equivalent of an eco tyre onto Ruby Roadster and taking it around Goodwood.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, now there's no problem with putting an economy tyre onto Ruby Roadster and taking it around Goodwood. You're going to get better puncture resilience. You're going to get better life out of the tyre.
Yeah.
However, you're not going to get the same amount of agility, turning, grip, lateral load, and all of the things that you're looking for on a race car.
Yeah.
So in all of these, and I hope it really comes across to the listeners, this isn't a podcast about, and the Cycle Sunday videos is not about an elitist, you've got to spend a fortune.
No.
The whole topic is always about appropriate products for appropriate situations.
Yes.
And if you are looking for the best wear and the best puncture resilience on your commuting bike,
armoured tyres.
Armoured tyres all day long, because if you're going past a whole street's worth of pubs that's got glass and what have you on the curbside, you need to protect yourself against that. There's no point putting a £70 pair of race tyres and finding you slicing every single commute. So it's all, but also always remember that a performance tyre to get performance is what you need.
Yeah, and I guess going back to that with wheels is you don't have to spend £1,000 on a set of wheels. I bought my road bike. My first road bike was like £900, I think. So if you think of all the things we've talked about, frame, group set, all of those things, if you think of what proportion of that would actually be the wheels that came on that bike, you're probably talking less than £100 each.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, maybe £50 each. So if you went out and spent £200 on a set of wheels or £300 on a set of wheels, the incremental gains you'd get from the quality upgrade would be a lot, right?
It would be pretty good, but you have to bear in mind that, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, is the fact that don't forget that wheel set that came on your £900 bike was bought at a manufacturer's OE cost.
It's that thing again. It's the same as a group set.
Yes. So it might have cost the manufacturer 50 quid a wheel. But if you as an individual was going to buy it from a bike shop that is just buying at bike shop trade prices versus billion-dollar manufacturer trade prices, then actually at retail, that 50 quid wheel set that came on your bike would probably be a £200 to £300 wheel set.
Okay.
So whenever we're talking about upgrades for customers, if you're spending money to upgrade, it has to be transformational.
Yes. Otherwise, there's no point.
Otherwise, it's a replacement.
You could go and buy a new, expensive set of wheels, and if you didn't know what you took, you could actually buy a set of wheels that wasn't any different to the ones that are on the bike already.
Correct.
Or worse.
We see that a lot. We see that a lot.
Because they look good.
Or a name.
Right.
So the thing is that, so on a lot of trek bikes, you have Bontrager wheels. So a lot of people think, hang on, that's just an in-house OE manufacturer. So what I'll do is I'll put a set of X, Y, and Z wheels on.
Mavics on there or something.
Or something like that, and actually end up downgrading their wheel set. Because what they didn't realise was that Bontrager's mantra is we are the world's best parts manufacturer for the world's best frame builder.
Yeah.
So everything that they do at every price point they make is with that single-mindedness of we have to be up to the spec of these bikes. So, you know, a Bontrager wheel set, yes, on an entry-level bike will just be a basic OE wheel set. Of course it will be. It's exactly your point, is that, you know, you spend your money, you get your product. But when you're spending some decent money, £5,000, £6,000, £1,200, £1,500, £2,000 on a set of Bontrager wheels, Campag wheels, DT Swiss wheels, all of these good manufacturers are producing fabulous products. But you must first of all understand what you're looking for out of this wheel set, because certain manufacturers have got certain weight limits. Certain manufacturers say that they are appropriate for use for off-road use, gravel use, or pure road use. And you've also got to think about what the backup is of that wheel set. So if you're putting, say, a couple of £1,000 into a set of wheels, you've got to make absolute sure that if you damage the wheel at all, that you've got a backup from that manufacturer, that they're able to supply you new parts. You know, the bearings and what have you all need to be replaced and lubricated and all those sorts of things. So does your dealer who's selling those wheels also have the technical expertise in their workshops to be able to service those wheels, to true intention those wheels? So that's why we don't do every single wheel set that's under the sun. We do specific wheel sets from specific manufacturers that all of our technicians have got appropriate tools, appropriate expertise, and spare parts in order to keep them going as well.
Really good point. Yeah. Because I guess of all the bits, you think the wheels, you know, the bit you don't need to service, but having had cones go and bearings and stuff go, and freewheels go, like I was saying in the last podcast.
Yes, it's a major service point. I mean, you imagine you've got, you know, take me for example, I'm sort of 90 and a bit kilos, heading south with 1 billion trillion tons heading north. And in the middle of me and the world is 7 kilos of bike travelling at 30 miles an hour on pretty poor road surfaces. That's not a lot of weight in between 90 kilos and 1 billion trillion tons. So when you think about what a bike goes through, every ride you take it on, how it lasts one ride. Have you ever thought of it like that?
I know. Especially you hit a pothole or something at high speed, it's a horrible thing.
It's a really horrible thing.
Last one before we move on to tyres is just a quick question about lightweight climbing wheels, or because I remember when I was in France going up a col on my bike, and I've got my Mavic Cosmic Carboni wheels, you know, and these two French guys were cycling along, and I speak a bit of French, and we're chatting, and one of them just looked at me and went, you know, basically said, you've got the wrong wheels on. You know, you're cycling up a hill. Why have you got deep section wheels on? You need lightweight climbing wheels. So I guess that comes back to the appropriate wheels for appropriate use. But are there kind of multi-use wheels that are kind of just good all-rounders, or would you ever recommend a?
Was that another pun?
Oh no, it wasn't actually.
It wasn't.
It was
that was an unintended pun. Good all-rounder.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, they are all-round.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah. They're getting much better at that. So Bontrager, just to bring them back, don't worry, this isn't a Bontrager fanboy thing. It's just as a point of topic.
This podcast is sponsored by Bontrager.
Yes, indeed.
It's not.
It's not. No. It used to be that you'd have 30mm deep wheels, you'd have 50mm deep wheels, you'd have 60s, 70s. And now what the aerodynamicists are finding is that they're finding profiles that's at around 37mm is giving the same aerodynamical benefits. Aerodynamical, is that a word?
Aerodynamic.
Yes.
Drinking a bit. This is one of the benefits. For those listening, by the way, you won't spot this, but Paul and I have a beer on the go. It's great.
Yes.
And you've been up all day.
I've been up all day. So if I'm sounding just a little bit ranty or excited or both at the same time, it is pure tiredness and alcohol.
Excellent. Good. Keep going.
Yes. So the brand new wheel sets are slightly shallower, but giving similar aerodynamic efficiencies to the deeper section wheels, whilst also being lighter. Because the deeper the section of wheel, the more material there is, so the heavier the wheel.
Yeah.
But here is a thought to throw out.
Oh no, incoming.
We talk about this to customers a lot in terms of the type of bikes. So you've got aero bikes, lightweight bikes. You've got aero wheels, lightweight wheels. So rather than just thinking about what is appropriate for a hill or a flat, think about it for enhancing a rider's weakness.
Okay.
So for example, if you are a relatively strong rider on the flat, and very few people, the skinny whippets who normally absolutely thrash you on the climbs, can't hang on to you on the flats.
Yeah.
Why go for a heavier aero bike with aero wheels to make you faster in a place where you don't need to be faster?
Okay, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because all your new bike's going to do is drop you even more
when you get to a hill, and take you away from your skinny whippets when you don't want to go further away from your skinny whippets. So why don't more powerful riders who are riding in a sportif style fashion have more climbing style bikes with climbing style wheels, and your lighter weight whippets who normally get dropped on the flats go for a slightly more aero package, who then are light enough to still keep with the heavier riders on their climbing bikes on the hills, so everybody rides together. Okay. Do you know what? You've just blown my mind there, I'm afraid. I've never thought of it that way.
No, nobody does.
Yeah.
They just go, I've got to go aero because it's cool and it's fast.
Yeah, I mean, they do.
And it just is. But, you know, so whenever you're making decisions, think about where you could go faster on a ride. You know, I put out, I'm no lightweight, and I put out a reasonable amount of power. So when I'm on a flatter section, I can literally push a big gear for a long time and feel very, very comfortable. But when I'm riding, you know, even with Rosie, who is significantly lighter than I am, she shows me a massive clean pair of heels when it comes to a climb.
Yeah.
So that's why I bought an Amonda.
Yeah.
I bought a slightly lighter weight bike. I still went for a 45 deep wheel because it looks cool, but ultimately I've got a 7 kilo climber's bike that I ride really quickly on the flats, but when I get to a climb it still feels agile and responsive.
Yeah, okay. Mate, that's opened up a whole new thought train for me.
Yeah, I'd love to see the comments on this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So moving on, keep an eye on time. Let's talk tyres. Mm-hmm. Okay, because I know you've been up this early, so you're tired by now.
I am, yeah, and this could be really gripping.
Yeah, but I'll try not to tread on you.
No.
Okay, so we're getting quite a few puns in.
We are.
I know, people are probably turning off now.
No.
So, tyres. I will freely admit to being more than a little nervous about going tubeless.
Right.
Okay. Having said that, the more I talk about tubeless with you, the more I realise there's a big chunk of that is just my basic lack of understanding about what tubeless really means.
Yes.
Both in terms of how it works and how it is to live with.
Yes.
And also just no experience of it.
Yes.
So I've always ridden a bike with an inner tube. And I guess in my head, I'm thinking, if you're riding a bike with an inner tube and you get a puncture on a ride, you get your tyre levers out, you take the inner tube out, you put a new one in, you put a gas canister on, and off you go.
Yes.
And 10 minutes later, you're riding again.
Yes.
And my worry is, in my head, I'm riding tubeless, I'm out on a ride in the middle of Nowheresville, I get a puncture, and I'm calling an Uber to get me home. And that's not right, is it?
No. No, it's not right. Tubeless has come on massively.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit on the fence with very small tyre volumes. Yeah. Because again, we're getting back to a bit of physics here. You've got high pressure versus high volume. Yeah. So the lower the size of the tyre and therefore the volume of air that's within that tyre, the higher pressure it has to be at.
Yeah. So I ride a 23mm tyre on my Venge.
Yes.
At somewhere between 110 and 120 psi.
Correct. So if you now imagine getting a puncture, how many seconds does it take for that tyre at 120 psi that's got virtually no air because there's hardly any tyre volume in a 23mm tyre? How long does that take to deflate to zero?
Milliseconds. It's like,
right.
Gone.
Yes.
And you're on the rim.
So if you were running tubeless under that pressure with that tyre volume, the chances are your tyre will lose too much pressure before the tubeless sealant seals and you can then keep travelling. Right? Now, let's now think about your mountain bike.
Yeah.
We're now talking a 2.2 inch wide.
I've got a 29er. Yeah.
You've got 29er. So now think about the volume of air that's within that tyre and tube. Yeah. Massive amounts, running late 20s to early 30 psi. Yeah. Now when you get a puncture, over the same amount of time, how much air comes out of that tyre?
As a percentage of the air that's in there?
Fractions.
Yeah.
So it's basically a time versus air volume. And the bigger the volume of tyre, the more of a no-brainer tubeless becomes.
Right.
Because the lower the pressure, the higher the volume, the longer the tyre has got to the sealant has got to seal the tyre to allow you to keep riding without you noticing.
Okay.
And we feel, just with experience, that a good rider who doesn't look at their front tyre every millisecond they're on the bike, they're actually looking ahead and they're not crashing into potholes and they're not crashing into thorns and, tree hedge cutting signs and that sort of thing. Around 28 millimeters is about a really good no-brainer starting point for going tubeless.
Okay.
Because a 28 millimeter tyre, you'll be running around 70 to 80 psi.
Okay.
With a bigger volume of air. So with the time it takes once you get a puncture for the sealant to seal, the chances are you won't really notice a difference in pressure.
Okay.
And you'll certainly have enough time, if you notice that, to stop, just put a CO2 cartridge on, top it back up again, and you won't have a rapid deflation and the tyre coming off the bead.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem with tubeless, is if you have a rapid deflation and the tyre comes off the bead and into the centre channel, trying to then reseat it back up again, that's really tricky.
Yeah.
Or can be really tricky.
Okay. So, because I've been looking forward to this podcast, because I want to throw you, if you like, my naive, not naive, but the decisions I made when I I run 23 millimetres on my tyre, and the reason I did that, because it came with 25 millimetres. I assumed that.
Yes.
Smaller tyre, higher pressure, lower rolling resistance, faster bike.
Yeah.
And I'm presuming that that's not the case.
No, I mean, there'll be a lot of people out there with a lot more engineering experience and, things on rolling resistance and that sort of stuff than I am. However, there's a number of factors that you've got to bear in mind. You've also got fatigue drop-off. Mm-hmm. So if you're riding on rolling rocks, which a 23 millimetre tyre on an aero rim at 120 psi on our road surface,
on a very stiff aero bike,
your fatigue drop-off is pretty quick.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're riding a bike that is a lower tyre pressure with a bigger tyre volume, even, say, for example, is 10% less efficient in terms of rolling along the ground, the lack of fatigue that you'll be putting on your body will allow you to perform for longer and faster.
This whole cycling thing is like juggling, isn't it?
Oh, massively. That's a really good way of putting it.
It's like, and it's not just, I can juggle with 3 balls.
Can you?
Yeah.
Well, live?
I can juggle with 3 anything. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Rings, clubs, balls.
Really?
Yeah.
Who wants to, in the comments, who wants to see that on petrol ped?
Okay, I could do 3 wheels. Yeah.
No, you can't.
See, that shut you up. So, but it is like juggling, but it's not like juggling with 3 balls. It's like juggling with like 5 or 6. There's so many different interlocking and interwoven things.
Yes.
So okay, so I've got a higher tyre volume, and I guess this is maybe for people who currently run an inner tube and so on. Mm-hmm. So, what is the major benefit then? Is it this kind of this lack of rolling resistance? Why go tubeless rather than just stick to the good old inner tube and think I'll just put a couple of tubes in my back pocket and at least I don't have to carry spare tubes with me now when I'm out on my bike?
No, you're right. And in terms of going tubeless, so there's a number of benefits. Number one is you're now carrying no weight of inner tube.
Yes.
Because it's gone.
Yeah.
Now, the tyre, because it's tubeless tyre, is slightly heavier.
Yeah.
And the sealant, around 40 to 60 millilitres, is around 40 to 60
grams. You've got
grams.
like a sealant fluid sloshing around inside there.
You've got a low viscous latex-based sealant that is basically in the tyre that you just do not feel. Mm-hmm. And that basically is if you get a thorn or a foreign object through your tyre that causes a deflation, the sealant will basically just grab that where the air is coming out, and the latex will plug it and seal it. And it happens so fast. It's within about a quarter to half a wheel rotation. It is really quick. In fact, the record here was a replacement tyre that came in, a tubeless road tyre, that came in on a commuting bike, and when we took the old tyre off that was ready to replace, there was 14 thorns in it.
Really?
So it had 14 punctures, and the customer never knew he had one.
Wow, man, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's that, you think about that number and how many times you would have just had to stop and replace an inner tube, and that person just kept riding. So that was a real good news story. We've had other stories where folk on lower volume, higher pressure tyres have had a mare, but subsequently have then gone to a slightly higher tyre volume with a slightly lower pressure and have now fallen in love with it. So this is where my comments come from. It's experience. It's using these things.
I am looking forward to it. Here's a question. I'm riding tubeless. Yes. I have a puncture and it's a nasty one.
Yeah.
Would you carry a spare tube if you had tubeless? Could you fit a tube as a kind of get you out of trouble, get you home thing?
You can, but I wouldn't.
Okay, just call an Uber.
Just call it a day.
This is Greaves. Come and pick me up.
Yeah. Just call it a day. Yeah.
Okay. Really good. Yeah. Really interesting. So I'm being swayed.
Yes. And the proof's going to be in the pudding. We're setting you up tubeless.
Yes.
You're going tubeless.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of like it, embrace it.
Yeah.
And I think what will be really important as somebody who's never run tubeless in their life, will you be instantly transformed?
Yeah,
because the other thing that that tubeless does is you will never ever get a pinch flat ever again.
Oh, yeah.
And think about how many punches you have had over the years, and how many were because of foreign objects going through the tyre, and how many were pinch flats.
Do you know what? So I can't remember which podcast it was, but I had that day just changed the tube on the back of my mountain bike.
Yes.
And I bought a new tyre. It was an absolute nightmare getting it on.
Yeah.
And I went out for a ride with my good mate Dan, and literally the day after that, I went to get it out of the bike storage place, and it had a flat, and it was a pinch flat.
It was pinch flat.
Yeah, and it's still flat now because I can't be asked to change it because it was so difficult to change.
Yeah.
So traumatic.
Yeah. So if you imagine now, never ever having a pinch flat ever again, because there's no tube to pinch.
So I think on an episode of Cycle Sunday, I think it would be really good if we showed how to fit a tubeless tyre and just do a thing on tubeless tyres and stuff.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I guess that's one of my questions is, okay, I can't go tubeless on my mountain bike because my wheels aren't able to do that, right? Because you need wheels that can do tubeless.
Yeah,
ideally.
And the other bugbear that we have, and again this will be controversial in the comments, is all of these bike hacks and ghetto fixes, and oh this will work, and oh that won't work, and oh you don't have to spend a lot of money, because seriously people, get the right kit. Get a proper tubeless ready set of wheels that was designed and engineered to run tubeless. A tyre that is a tubeless ready tyre that is designed to run tubeless, and then get the proper manufacturer's kit to convert that wheel into a tubeless setup, and get good advice before you go and do it, or get the bike shop to do it properly, because we're doing it every day.
Yeah.
95% of all mountain bikes that we are selling in here are tubeless. And we sell a lot of mountain bikes. So our technicians are doing upwards of 10 to 15 tubeless setups every day.
Wowzers.
So trust us when we say we know what we're doing.
Comes back to the whole do it at home, but if you really don't know what you're doing, just have a great relationship with your bike shop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we are getting to the end of our allotted time today. Now, the next episode, and that's why I am here.
Indeed.
And we won't give too much away, is we can start to think about actually putting the bike together.
Yes.
Which is going to be very exciting.
Yes.
But we've also got, one of the things we kind of want to let people realise is going to happen is Cycle Sunday is not going to finish once the bike's put together. We've got a whole bunch of other things that we're going to start to do, and it would be great if people had ideas for videos or wanted to pick your brains. Then let us know in the comments or reach out to us. For example, we're going to do a video on, or maybe a couple of videos on e-bikes.
Yes, we're going to really deep dive electric bikes.
Because I have today ridden an e-bike for the first time, and oh my goodness me, it has freaked me out and blown me away, and I need one in my life now.
Yes.
Amazing thing.
Yes.
We also might do one on gravel bikes, because what you can't see off camera, and the guys who are listening can't, but just next to Paul is a Bianchi Archidex gravel bike, and it is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
So we want to start to do...
And mountain bikes.
And we need to do some mountain bike stuff.
Yes.
And we need to get our baggy shorts on and go, hey dude, that's rad, and get stoked and do some mountain bikes.
I have no idea what words you've just said.
I don't know either.
But yeah, we'll do that anyway.
Mountain bikes.
Mountain bikes.
And then we could do e-mountain bikes.
E?
So there's a whole bunch. So we want to kind of start to evolve the series a little bit away. Not just, this series was never just about my dream bike, although it's been an amazing way to kind of start to have that conversation about bikes and all the technology around them. But there's so much stuff, and here in your new shop, we're surrounded by things that we can share with the audience. And so if there's anything you want to know, let us know, reach out to us.
Yeah, please do.
But make sure you tune in to Cycle Sunday next Sunday on the Petrol Ped YouTube channel, and then the podcast after, because it's going to be a really good one.
Yes.
It's going to be a really, really good one.
Indeed.
But guys, I hope you enjoyed that one.
We certainly have.
We certainly have, because we've been drinking beer.
Yes.
And what I would say is, Paul, you've been getting this shop ready has been a proper hardcore chore for the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's
7 a.m. till 10 at night, every day for the last whatever.
Yeah, but it's been a real joy and privilege, and the customer feedback has just been amazing. We are so proud of this place.
Yeah, you should be. And next week,
and we're 8
Cycle
years
Sunday,
at the end of this month.
Really?
Yes.
Mate, there you go.
Yes.
Well, next week on Cycle Sunday, I will give you a tour of this incredible new bike shop.
Brilliant.
So make sure you tune into that. Paul, it's been great doing a podcast actually face to face instead of online. It's been fantastic.
Do you know, still socially distanced?
Still socially distanced, very much so, yeah. Well, I did pass a COVID test this morning before I travelled to Scotland, before anybody says anything.
Indeed.
But anyway, guys, I'll see you on the next episode of Cycle Sunday. But for now, I've been Pete Greaves.
And I've been Paul Bowker.
Ride safe, guys.
Ride safe.